you come back and do that again?
Sure.
Thank you. It's so beautiful. We have so much richness in our community, don't we? Speaking of, our speaker this morning has a rich history in theater, television, and film. On Broadway in New York City, he portrayed Cecil B. DeMille in Sunset Boulevard. On film, he portrayed Sigmund Freud in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Dr. Paul in Man on a Swing. And on television, he starred in Star Trek Next Generation, The Bold and the Beautiful, Matlock, Burke's Law, and Seventh Heaven. And we're about to hear from heaven this morning. He has been a licensed practitioner in this teaching for 12 years and is a member of our Center for Spiritual Living Chico community. Providing inspiration this morning with his version of Sermon by the Sea, please welcome Mr. Rod Loomis.
Like mine. I'm just going to close this up here. Reverend Michael, would you just... Yes, thank you. It's nice to be here this morning. That's right. Ted told me to turn this on, yes. Dr. Ernest Shurtleff Holmes was born on January the 21st, 1887, on a small farm in northern Maine. His father was the farmer, his mother was a school teacher. They were a very close-knit family. There were 7 brothers. Ernest, the most famous, then came Fenwick, who also was very well known. As a teenager, he was known as the eternal question mark. He was curious about everything. He possessed a quick, analytical, retentive mind. And his most often used words were why and how. Having moved to Boston at the age of 18, he made a quick visit home to see his brother William, who was a psychology student at Yale University, who had written on metaphysical subjects. And while there, he discovered a copy of Emerson's essays. It was as if a light went on in his soul, his brother Fenwick wrote. It was at that moment that life really began for Ernest. Ernest said, reading Emerson was like drinking water to me. He is a friend, a present I give to myself. Dr. Holmes loved all people. He believed that everyone has a unique gift to give to all of humanity. He loved nature, was particularly fond of children and animals. He read and studied the writings of Socrates and Plotinus, the Buddha, Jesus, Quimby, Troward, Hopkins, Freud, Einstein, and all known religions and philosophies he could engage in. And he could engage in lengthy discussions about all of them. Dr. Holmes believed that you should take what you do seriously, but never yourself. Ernest loved being at Asilomar. He loved the ocean. He loved engaging the attendees in conversation. He would give the final talk of the week on Saturday morning at the chapel. It became known as the Sermon by the Sea. This particular one was given on August the 15th, 1959. It would be his last Asilomar as he made his transition on April the 7th, 1960, at the age of 72. Earlier in February of that year, he was speaking at the dedication of the Whittier, California Religious Science Church. And he experienced a revelation of cosmic consciousness. He was in the middle of his talk, and suddenly he stopped. And there was a long pause, as if in the trance. And he said, I see it. Oh, God, the veil is thin between. We do mingle with the hosts of heaven. I see it. Less than 2 months later, he made his transition, having suffered a stroke. And hopefully, joining his beloved Hazel, his bride, who he fondly referred to as Madam Buddha. So here we are at Asilomar. It's Saturday morning. We are filled with love and many blessings from a wonderful week of great talks and workshops, beautiful music, time with old friends and new friends. And of course, the gorgeous Asilomar grounds. It's nearing time for us to head home, but one thing left to experience. So we head to the chapel a little early so that we can get a good seat. There is great excitement as the author of Science of Mind and founder of religious science, Dr. Holmes, walks out on the stage to great applause.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful.
Morning. Have all of you gotten your Asilomar jugs? Mug? Our religion is not something to be lived merely here at Asilomar. As much inspiration as we receive from it, but rather to take that consciousness which we have arrived at here back with us into whatever activities we may be engaged in. I do not believe life is separated from its living anywhere. There is nothing in the world that can take the place of love, friendship, appreciation, and cooperation in our lives. I have thought so much about this all week because these are the only things that have any meaning in the eternal values in which we are so interested. Emerson said that it is very easy for us to maintain a spiritual equilibrium in solitude. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowds shall still keep the sweetness, the independence of his solitude. I do not believe there is a single fact in human history or a single manifestation in the universe which is or could possibly be anything other than a manifestation of the one divine mind, the one universal presence, the one infinite spirit. It seems to me that it is only as we view all life, everything from what we call great to what we call small, important or unimportant. It is only as we view the whole thing as one stupendous whole whose body nature is with God the soul that we shall really enter into communion, into sympathetic oneness and rapport with the reality of all that is about us. Someone once asked me, "What do you think God is?" I looked out the window and I said, I think God is that tree. And there was a squirrel running up the tree, and I said, I think God is that squirrel. It is going to be absolutely impossible for us with our finite comprehension to have the intelligence to divide the indivisible and to say that this is real and that is unreal. The marketplace is as real as is the temple. That is why Jesus said, it is neither in the temple at Jerusalem nor in the mountain, but in yourself, that the secret of life is discovered, that the soul of the universe is consciously entered into, and the divine and benign spirit which indwells everything is loosed in its splendor and power through you. Through your partnership with the infinite, through your oneness with God, the living Spirit. Everything that lives proclaims the glory of God. Every person who exists manifests the life of God. There is one spirit in which we live, one mind in which we think, one body of which we are a part, and one light that lighteth every man's pathway. We are a part of the evolution of human destiny. We are a part of the unfoldment of the divine intelligence in human affairs. It has reached the point of conscious and deliberate cooperation with that principle of evolution and outpush of the creative urge of the Spirit on this planet, at least, to bring about innumerable centers which it may enjoy. Also, we may enjoy it through that divine interior awareness which is the intercommunication of God with man, revealing our own divine nature. Having had the privilege of starting religious science, I would wish, I would will, and above all things else, that the simplicity and purity of our teaching could never be violated. There is a purpose of simplicity, a consciousness of unity, a straight line thinking in our philosophy that has never appeared before in the world outside of the teachings of men like Jesus and Emerson. There was nothing obscure in the teaching of Jesus. He just said that it is a Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Why don't you take it? He said there is nothing but God. Why don't you believe it? He was the last of the great Jewish prophets, the greatest line of emotional prophets the world has ever known. Now, the Greeks had the greatest intellectual perception of the ages. It appears in their literature and in their art. A perfect thing, but without a soul. We find a great intellectualism in Emerson, who never contradicted himself. He gave us the most simple statement of intellectual, spiritual perception probably that has ever been put in print. As that of Jesus, it was most simple, direct, meaningful, and feelingful. We in religious science inherit all of this. It would be my desire that simplicity and purity and directness, that straight thinking should never depart from the techniques of our practitioners or instruction of our teachers or understanding of our laymen. It is the most direct impartation of divine wisdom that has ever come to the world, because it incorporates the prophets, the precepts of Jesus and Emerson, Buddha, and all the rest of the wise. And I would that in our teaching there would never be any arrogance, for it always indicates spiritual immaturity to me. We should never believe our own press notices. Others will arise. They won't be better or worse. They will be different and know more than we do. Maybe. Evolution is forward. I would that we should not build out of the body of our simplicity and grandeur and beauty other creeds, loaded with superstition, a fear of the unknown, and a dread of the unseen. We have discovered a pearl of great price. We have discovered the rarest gem that has ever found setting in the intellect of the human race. Complete simplicity, complete directness, a freedom from fear and superstition about the unknown and about God. And we have rediscovered that which the great, the good, and the wise have sung about and thought about. The imprisoned splendor within ourselves and within each other, and have direct contact with it. Whether we call it the Christ in us, or the Buddha, or Atman, or just the Son of God, the living Spirit, makes no difference. You and I are witness to the divine fact, and we have discovered an authority beyond our minds, even though our minds utilize it. Out of this, we have prepared ourselves. I think, I hope, I pray, and I believe. One cannot but feel from the human point in such meetings as these that it is entirely possible one might not be here next year. This is of complete indifference to me because I believe in life. I feel fine. Such an event as death is merely the climax of human events in anybody's life. And it is to be looked forward to, not with dread or fear or apprehension, but as the great next adventure, and one that we should all be very happy and glad to experience. But we must weigh and measure things somewhat from the human angle. No person or organization can make the provision for that which is paramount, for that which is of the most stupendous importance, that out of the ranks of all of us, innumerable people shall grow up who shall have caught a vision, who shall have seen a glory, who shall have experienced God. The thing that interests me now is that every man shall find his Savior within himself. If this is the only place he is going to discover God, you may be sure it is the only avenue through which any wayshower shall lead him to God. There is no other way. Jesus knew this, and when they sought to make Jesus the man, the way, he said that it was expedient that he go away, that the Spirit of truth should awaken within his followers the knowledge and understanding of what he had been talking about. That he had come to reveal them to themselves, not him. As we think and speak and talk and commune with each other and with nature and God, There will never be an answer beyond the level of our approach. The level of our approach is the only avenue through which there could be any answer. Else we would not be individuals. God cannot make a mechanical spontaneity. And that is why we are left alone. We are left alone to discover ourselves. Those who bear witness in consciousness do not need to retire from life. The great man is he who, in the midst of the crowds, can keep with perfect simplicity the independence of his solitude. It is not in the mountain or the temple in Jerusalem. It is in our own heart, our own mind, our own consciousness, our own being, where we live 24 hours a day, awake or asleep, that the eternal share of the infinite comes to us. Because every man is some part of the essence of God, not as a fragment, but as totality. I think we in religious science have brought a blessing to the world. The possibility of something expressing through us that has never before been given to the world. A simplicity, a sincerity, and I trust a love and understanding. But we too little practice it because the human mind is prone, even when it has been discovered, and if it has discovered a greater good than it had before, to compare the degree of good it thinks it possesses with the lesser degree of good it thinks someone else has. Anyone here identify with that? This is brought about only through the psychological projection of some unredeemed part of a person's own psyche. You will never discover a person who is full of emotional judgment and condemnation of others, who is doing anything other than unconsciously releasing the tension of a burden so great to be borne, that he does not even permit it to come to the light of day to be seen, for he could not face it. And that is why Jesus, with a profoundness of utmost simplicity, did not say, "Judge not, lest God will judge you." He knew better. He said, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged." In other words, your judgment will judge you. And with what measure ye meet, it will be measured to you again. God is not going to measure it back to you and say, "I will show you who is boss." You are the measurer outer. As Troward said, we are dispensers of the divine gift, and we are in partnership with the infinite. It would be wonderful indeed if a group of persons should arrive on earth who are for something and against nothing. This would be the ultimate. Yes, wouldn't it? It is. In the life of the individual. Find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. Find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe, or of God, or of man, or of anything else. And And you will have brought to me someone in whose presence we may sit, and fear shall vanish as clouds before the sunlight. Find me someone who has redeemed his own soul, and he shall become my Redeemer. Find me someone who has given all that he has in love, without morbidity, and I will have found the lover of my soul. Is not this true? Why? Because they have revealed to me the nature of God and proved to me the possibility of all human souls. This is what religious science stands for. It is not a new dogmatism. It is not a new authority generated from a new alleged revelation of God who never revealed anything to anybody as such, else it could not have revealed all things to all people. There is no special dispensation of providence, but there is a specialized dispensation, which is the great, the good, and wise, and just have known, even though they knew it intuitively. Find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. Find me one person who knows how to talk to God, really, and I shall walk with him through the woods, and everything that seems inanimate will respond. The leaves of the trees will clap their hands, the grass will grow soft under him. Find me one person who communes with cause and effect, and in the evening star will sing to him, and the darkness will turn to light. Through him, as the woman who touched the hem of the garment of Christ was healed, shall I be healed of all loneliness forever. Find me someone who no longer is sad, whose memory has been redeemed from morbidity, and I shall hear laughter. Find me someone whose song is really celestial, because it is the outburst of the cosmic urge to sing, and I shall hear the music of the spheres. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father, neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. And each of us is that Son. No use waiting for avatars. Jesus is not coming back. He's wiser than that. He has earned whatever he has. And to you and to me, no single kernel of grain shall come unless we have planted it. No meal shall be made unless we have ground it, no bread baked unless we have kneaded it and put it in the oven of our own consciousness, where the silent processes of invisible and ineffable light precipitates itself into that which for us stands for the start of life. Oh, but how we have put off that day. We say to each other that we don't know enough, we aren't good enough. The ignorance of our unknowing, the blindness of our unseeing, the condemnation of the ages weighing against our consciousness, known and unknown, conscious and unconscious, has created the greatest negation the world has ever known, and heaped upon the greater possibility of the larger progress of humanity a burden so tremendous that even men's adoration of God has been saddened by fear. Like the man who prayed, "Oh God, if there be a God, save my soul if I have one." He did not know, so was afraid to take a chance. Find me one person who no longer doubts, no longer wavers, but not one who, with the proclamation of superiority, says, "Oh, look at me, I have arrived." I will not listen to that. Only that which reveals me to myself can be a message to me. Only that which gives me back myself can save me. Only that which leads me to the God within myself can reveal God. And only that person can do it whom the vision has come through his own efforts, through the gift of God. Of course, the grace of God abounds by divine givingness. God has forever hung himself upon the cross of men's indifference. God has forever, but without suffering, given itself again and again and again. But we have not received the gift. Find me one person who has so completely divorced from himself all arrogance, and you will have discovered for me an open pathway to the kingdom of God here and now. Up until now, the search has been in far-off corners of the earth, and we have knelt upon a prayer rug and been wafted away in our morbid and fearful imagination over ethers of nothingness to places that have no existence, the temples of our unbelief. And we have come back empty. What went ye out into the wilderness to see? And now comes religious science. We are no more sincere than others. If we felt we were, that would be a projection of our insecurity and insincerity. We are no better. If we thought we were, that would be a projection of an unconscious sense of guilt. Anyway, that would be stupid, and there is no greater sin on earth than just plain stupidity. What shall reveal the self to the self? The self will raise the self by the self. Find me somebody who has detached his emotional and psychological ego from the real self without having to deny the place it plays in the scheme of things, and without slaying any part of himself, because the transcendence is there also. And I will have discovered the ineffable in this individual, and a direct pathway for the communion of my own soul. Now, what does this all mean? I am talking about you and myself. When I say find a person, I don't mean to go to Rome or London or go back even to your own church. The search is not eternal. All of these people I have been talking about have no existence as such, other than as figments of my own imagination, until they are finally, what? Centered in our own soul. Then the guest for whom we are looking will be the self-redeemed from the lesser self. You know, this is a very interesting thing. For nature is foolproof, and when the fruit is ripe, it will fall. When the kingdom of God is perceived, it will be experienced simultaneously, instantaneously, and in its entirety. But these people all exist in us. They are different attributes and qualities of our own soul. They are different visions. Not that we have dual personalities. but that every one of us on that inner side of life is, has been, and shall remain in eternal communion with the ineffable, where he may know that he is no longer with God, but what? One of God. If it were not for that which echoes eternally down the corridors of our own minds, some voice that ever sings in our own souls, some urge that continuously presses us forward, there would be no advance in our science of religion, or in the humanities, or anything else. But he left not himself without witness. These are simple things that call for discipline. Not as one normally thinks of discipline, but a different kind of discipline that one discovers. I often sit for several hours at a time, sometimes all day, thinking one simple thought, no matter what it is. It isn't a waste of time to find out what this thought means to me, or what it should mean in my life, or what it would mean everywhere. This is something no one can do for us but ourselves. We are the way. We are the truth. We are the life. We have come to Asilomar and spent this wonderful week together in love for each other, an adoration for the God we believe in. Many wonderful things have happened that would seem miracles if we didn't know about them. And now we meet for this fond farewell after the spiritual bath of peace, the baptism of the Spirit. Not through me, but you to me and I to you, through each other. The revelation of the self to the self. We go back into the highways and byways of life with something so great that never again will anything be quite the same. A little more light shall come, a little greater glory, added to the glory that we already possess. A deeper consciousness, a higher aspiration, a broader certainty of the mind. You are religious science. I am not. I am only the one who puts something together. I do not even take myself seriously, but I take what I am doing seriously. You are religious science. Our ministers, our teachers, our practitioners, our laymen. You find me 1,000 people in this world who know what religious science is and use it and live it as it is. And I'll myself live to see a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth here. There is a cosmic power wrapped up in a cosmic consciousness and purposiveness that is equal to the vision which looses it. What I am saying is this: there is a law that backs up the vision, and the law is immutable. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. There is a power transcendent beyond our needs and our little wants. Demonstrating a dime is good if you need it. Or healing oneself of a pain is certainly good if one has it. But beyond that, at the real feast of the tabernacle of the Almighty and the temple of the living God, in the banquet hall of heaven, there is something beyond anything that you and I have touched. Find me 1,000 people who know that and use it, and the world will no longer be famished. How important it is that each one of us in our simple way shall live from God to God, with God, in God, and to each other. That is what we are here for. And we are taking back with us, I trust, a vision and an inspiration. Something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall, through us, walk anew in its own creation, and a new glory come with a new dawn. And for all the love you have given me, may God bless you. And so it is.